Good evening, Dolphins fans. Welcome to another episode here of On the FinSide with Kat and Paul. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, all of our social media outlets. We are also the official channel as well for finfanatic.com and the FanSided Network. So we are 35 days away, Paul, from the NFL draft. 5 weeks from tonight, we're going to be hearing the Miami Dolphins first round pick, and we're going to really be kicking it into high gear here over the next 5 weeks. We're going to actually in April be doing 3 shows a week, all diagnosing one position as it's viewed through the Miami Dolphins lens, who they may pick, fits for the team, guys who may not be great fits. So we're certainly looking forward to that. But for tonight and tonight, Saturday and Sunday, we're going to do 3 separate mock drafts. So Paul has twisted my arm, knows how much I hate mock drafts, but sometimes we got to give the people what they want here. So tonight we are doing a 7-round dueling Dolphins mock draft. Paul and I have not shared this with each other, and we don't know what the other person is going to pick. So we did not coordinate on this. We're going to go back and forth on this. So this should be a lot of fun. Paul, so before we get started here, and I'll explain the rules in just a second. Any passing thoughts here as we're 5 weeks away from the draft, or are we just gonna kind of let the draft picks do the talking here?
God, I have so many thoughts. I have done so many mock drafts over the past few weeks. I'm so excited that you say you're giving the people what you want. It's me. I'm the people. So thanks, Kat.
So listen, in all seriousness, I don't hate mock drafts, okay? I think they're a great brain exercise. I do them myself. I've done them since I was 15 years old, heading up into the NFL draft. But I just think after you do them, you shouldn't share them with people. I mean, is that too much to ask?
I only share with like 1 in 25, I think, maybe.
No, not specifically everybody in the world. Don't just do your mock draft, shove it in your pocket, and I don't want to see it on my timeline 6 times a day. But anyway, I'm going to go into my grumpy rant here. But look,
I like catching you on your first break in your workday with, Kat, look what I did today. Like it's a freaking drawing for my 3rd grade art class.
So the thing is, it's like when I see these mocks, I see 86 trades, and then the Dolphins have like 18 picks, and then based on that website, a certain amount of players fell, and they just take the best available players. So we've taken all of that out of this. So we've come up with a few rules. We're not to bore you with too many details here, but basically Paul and I have decided on these rules. This is us as the general manager going back and forth. So this is not what we think the Dolphins are going to do. Number 2, we use the PFF mock draft simulator. There are a lot of good ones out there. This is the one we decided on. Number 3, and this is the most important, we are allowed to make 1 trade up and down. That can be a trade down from 3. It can be a trade up from the 7th round pick, whatever we decide that we want to do here that represents that value. And I don't think there's anything else I missed here, Paul.
No, I think one of the big things I'd say there is, and just to elaborate a little bit more, is if we're sitting there in round 3 and Trevor Lawrence is there, we're not going to take him. That's just not realistic. We're trying to keep it as realistic as possible.
Exactly. So if we are going along in the mock here, and we sense like, okay, that's not really realistic, that player should not be there in round 5, then we're just going to pretend like he's not there. So that's why you'll find this mock a little bit more realistic. You may think some players fell a little bit further or were taken a little bit higher, but that would be your judgment on that. So, Paul, let's get started here. The first 2 picks of the draft. Yeah. Let's assume that Trevor, not that it really matters, but number 1, Jaguars take Trevor Lawrence. Number 2, the Jets take a quarterback, probably Zach Wilson. There we are at number 3, about 7:30 Central Time. The Dolphins are on the clock, 10 minutes left. The popular thing is that they trade down. What did you decide to do here with the number 3 pick?
So my first 37 mocks this week, I took the number 3 pick and I traded down. But in my final mock that I did today, actually, I could not bring myself in good conscience to trade down. It's as much as I wanted to, predominantly throughout my mocks that I've been doing, I've been trading back with the Eagles, feeling that the Eagles would come after a quarterback, and I'd be in really good shape to very likely land Kyle Pitts. Now that the Eagles signed Joe Flacco to be the backup to Hurts, I don't think they're going to go quarterback here. I think they would look squarely at Kyle Pitts as a very high probability pick, and I'm not willing to risk that scenario. One of the reasons why I wanted to trade back to 6 was the fact that I thought you could still get Pitts at 6 most likely. I felt it would push Penei Sewell down to probably 5th to the Bengals, and we'd be in great shape here. But since that's the case, I don't want to lose Kyle Pitts. I think he is a one of those things that gets thrown around way too much, which is generational athlete. There's just never been a tight end like Kyle Pitts, with the physical tool set, both in the receiving game, with the speed that he's got after he ran on his pro day unofficially, and with the fact that what I think Miami's offense can do with Gesicki and Pitts in the fold in those two tight end sets, you could run the same personnel almost for goal line as you can for 5 wide. And this was the easiest, biggest pick for me. Kyle Pitts, pick number 3. And we appear to have lost Cat here. So we'll give this a second for him to get back on here. Can't wait to see what he did. And let us know in the chat what you think of the pick of Kyle Pitts here. It's very much one that I am huge on for the Dolphins going into the draft. You guys have heard me talk Kyle Pitts extensively. Huge fan of him. Huge fan of Micah Parsons, who's my 1B. But let's give Cat a minute to get back in here. 1 second. I'm going to check on him, and I apologize for the inconvenience here. Here he comes. Hey, you didn't have to get so upset with my pick of Kyle Pitts that you just disappear on me. Like, it's okay. We can have 2 tight ends. I swear. I know you're a fan too. So, anyway, welcome back, Cat. You are on mute.
All right. I can't promise that's not going to happen again for the internet connection, but I don't think it will. So, no, as far as Kyle Pitts is concerned, yeah, I mean, you look at now the weapons with Devontae Parker, Mike Gesicki, Kyle Pitts, and Will Fuller. So as far as this is concerned, Paul, I've been looking at Pitts, and he's would be one of my choices here at number 3 too. So my question back to you on that to follow up here is, do you see Mike Gesicki leaving as a free agent after the 2021 season if Kyle Pitts is the pick there at 3?
I think it's independent of the fact of whether Kyle Pitts is the pick or not. I think if Mike Gesicki's leaving, he's going to leave. I think Miami's going to try to retain him either way. You look back at Flores' days in New England, what they started to do with Hernandez and Gronk back in the day, the fact that they've tried to do it again, and what they saw as a result of that. Yeah, no, it's. I see it being a thing where they try to retain Gesicki as well.
Yeah, and if Pitts is the pick there at 3, that's what's important to me. Is that it's not to say, okay, we're upgrading the tight end position. It's to do something special on offense with Mike Gesicki, Kyle Pitts, and whoever else is there, whether it's Devontae Parker, Will Fuller, or both. So, yeah, and with my pick at number 3, and I got a couple of trade offers here. The Panthers offered next year's first and this year's 3rd rounder, and the Broncos offered the same. I was very close to pulling the trigger on both of them, going down, getting the best available pass catcher. Just like you, I couldn't do it. I took a different player. and it's offensive tackle Penei Sewell. I stay at number 3 and take Penei Sewell. At pick number 3, you just have such a rare opportunity to draft a rare player. Sewell, like Kyle Pitts, is 20 years old. And the things he did at the collegiate level for 2 years were just beyond his time. I mean, he allowed 1 sack in 2 years, and he was 18 and 19 years old in those 2 years. 6'6", 330 pounds. This is the best offensive tackle prospect that I've seen in 15 to 20 years. I mean, you have to go back to Orlando Pace back in 96, I think, to find somebody who's comparable. And offensive tackle is a very traits-driven position. And when you have somebody who's 6'6", 330 and getting bigger and stronger, and has had a year to work on getting bigger and stronger, I think he's going to just add something very rare to that left tackle spot. And now with Sewell joining the 3 rookies from last year, Austin Jackson, Robert Hunt, and Solomon Kinley, the Dolphins may not have to touch the offensive line for 3 more years. And that's exciting that you can take the resources and spend them on other positions. Now Tua has that wall in front of him. So at pick number 18, I'm going to throw it back to you to see what you did there on or after Kyle Pitts.
I'm not at pick number 18. You can slice that pick in half, and Micah Parsons started to slide. I know he's got character issues, but you talk about a linebacker that does everything he does and runs somewhere between a 4.38 and a 4.39 40 today. Any doubt that I had about being able to take Micah Parsons went out the window. The fact that he basically came out, acknowledged the fact that he had some character issues and maturity issues when he was 17, 18 years old, and basically said that now that he's a father and everything else, he's kind of figured some of that out. Hopefully the team does their due diligence. If they do and it works out, and I basically gave up this year's number 18 pick and next year's number 1 draft pick to move up to number 9 with the Denver Broncos and take Micah Parsons. I got my 1A and my 1B, and they're both players that we just haven't seen anybody in their class in a long time, if ever, just like what you're seeing with Penei Sewell.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine you on draft day if that were to happen, getting Kyle Pitts and Micah Parsons. And
you'll see me right here live. You'll see the reaction. You don't even have to imagine it.
I think you'll be running down the street instead. You would have two athletes on both sides of the football there. And yeah, I mean, you're going to talk about filling needs. You fill your edge. You also fill, we won't call him a tight end. We'll call him a pass catcher. And you talk about creating mismatches and matchup problems. Absolutely. So I also did not pick at 18, but for a different reason. I did not trade up. I traded down from 18 to 31 with the Kansas City Chiefs. And what I got in return for that, for the move down from 18 to 31, was the Chiefs' second round pick number 63, and a 4th round pick next year. So I slide back 13 spots in the first round, get a 2nd rounder, and get a 4th rounder for next year. So now the Dolphins would have pick number 31 in the first round. And then in the second round, they would have 36, 50, and 63. And then next year, they would have an extra 4th round pick in this trade, as well as a 6th round pick from the Patriots for Isaiah Ford. So with the 31st pick, the Dolphins address the running back position, and it is Najee Harris from Alabama. Now, if you want to substitute Javonte Williams out from North Carolina, I would be perfectly fine with that too. I think running back right now in the NFL is a position that is dropping in terms of value. I mean, it has been for a couple of years, but Najee is somebody that would resemble that. The Dolphins are finally taking the running back position a little bit more seriously. You know, they've been dealing with Kalen Ballage and Frank Gore. Myles Gaskin's a good player, but he's not a bell cow. Now this year, they're actually getting that guy. They can absorb some of that attention that we're expecting Tua to get. And you're doing it with Tua's former teammate as well. So he's going to help in the running game and the passing game. Najee Harris really reminds me from back in the day of Edger and James, somebody who's going to help in the running and passing game and help in pass protection too.
Yeah, and I like that pick. I kind of saw it coming. I do think Najee may potentially be gone by then, but it's a tough call. I mean, running backs have not typically gone heavily in the first round. I think there's 1 year where 3 went in the past 10. And most of the time it's guys that are washouts and don't live up to the hype. So, yeah, no, it's I'm very hopeful for Najee. I would like what you're building there with Penei Sewell and with Najee Harris. For me, the fact that I've got Kyle Pitts and Micah Parsons and still need a running back and still need to address that, I went to that well at number 36, and Javonte Williams was sitting out there for me. I have no issue going with him. The guy, I believe, led the NCAA in broken tackles this year, and he is such a tough runner. He can be a little bit of a weapon in the receiving game. And again, it's kind of a pick your poison type of thing with the top 3 running backs. I did have Travis Etienne on the board. I passed him up for Javonte. And now I've got Kyle Pitts and Javonte on offense and Micah Parsons on defense. And I got to tell you, this is already a winning draft from me, no matter what happens from here.
Yeah, the Dolphins have added a lot of athleticism with those top 3 picks if they were to happen that way. So I also have the number 36 pick too. And so the third player I'm going to add here that was available is Elijah Moore, the wide receiver from Mississippi. And he ran a 4.36 here today. Came in a little bit smaller at 5'9", 174 pounds. But you want to talk about somebody who can separate off the line of scrimmage. And you pair him with Will Fuller in terms of separating and getting deep. You've got something special there. And you combine that with Gesicki and Devontae Parker. You can really attack defenses from so many levels in the passing game now. And you take a look at his production here. It's off the charts. So this past year, Elijah Moore played in 8 games for Mississippi. Okay. 86 catches for 1,193 yards in 8 games, just game by game. 139 yards against Mississippi State, 225 against South Carolina, 238 against Vanderbilt, 113 against Arkansas, 143 against Alabama, 92 against Kentucky, and 227 against Florida. I mean, separating and getting open is all this guy does. And now you have those 5 skill position players, Najee, Parker, Fuller, Elijah Moore, and Gesicki. Now Tua can spread the field and really start card dealing out there.
I like that pick. I mean, he's a guy I really like a lot in this draft. I do think Miami's going to add 1 wide receiver in the draft. They've got a really crowded wide receiver room right now. And I know we didn't simulate this, but I can see a scenario where they do trade a receiver or 2 on draft day to come in or sweeten the pot on a couple of deals, because we do know Chris Grier does like to move around in the draft.
He sure does. So going back to pick 50, because we don't have trade downs anymore, trade up. So now everything's going to kind of stay on that even plane for the rest of the draft here. Number 50 in the second round, the Dolphins select Elijah Molden, cornerback, nickelback from Washington. This is the first pick on the defensive side of the ball, and it would tug at my heartstrings if it were a defensive back, because I want the Dolphins to overload on defensive backs regardless of what round it is. And he's somebody that his father was a first round pick in 96, Alex Molden. He's somebody that Lance Zierlein from NFL.com compared to Tyrann Mathieu. I wouldn't quite go that far, but he plays that same type of role. He's that free. He can play free safety. He can play nickelback, but he has unbelievable instincts for the position. Back in 2019, when he was playing for Washington, he had 4 interceptions, 3 forced fumbles, 12 passes defended. Only played 4 games this past year, though. So I think the Dolphins can really add somebody on their defense that can be the 5th or 6th defensive back, play 60 to 70% of defensive snaps, even as a rookie.
Well, we both added to the secondary with the 50th overall pick. And, Kat, I think you can probably take a guess where I went since he was still on the board, which is, I think, about as far down as I can see him sliding. Richie Grant's a guy I've been talking about since last year's draft when I thought he'd come out. And he has only gotten better and better and better as time wore on. He just is dominant. He can play that all three level safety that you saw the Dolphins start to use Bobby McCain at last year. And he can kick Bobby back to the nickel. So we went ahead, we improved the nickel spot, kicking Bobby over there. He could be that deep safety. He could come up and be that strong safety. He can run up to the line of scrimmage and drop back into pass coverage or blitz. There is so much good that you can see in Richie Grant's game that he could be an impact player from all over this defense. So now you've got two guys that I've added on the defensive side of the ball that make this defense more explosive and will fit perfectly with that positionless drunk defense that Flores likes to run.
Yeah, he can play in the slot. He can play free safety, strong safety, and yeah, this is shaping up to be a great Dolphins mock or Dolphins draft for you if it were to happen this way. Here at pick number 63 now, because this is the pick that in this mock draft I acquired trading down from 18 to 31. So stay with me. Pick number 63 from the Chiefs in the second round. The Dolphins take Quinn Miners, the center from Wisconsin Whitewater. And this is somebody that Brian Flores coached in the Senior Bowl, got to see up close. He broke his hand before the game and actually still wanted to go in. But it's not just the toughness. It's that he's 6'3", 320 pounds. And you look at him here over the last couple of weeks, has checked every box athletically in terms of 40-yard dash, broad jump, strength, everything. And he also has the confidence to back it up. I think he can come in and immediately challenge Matt Skura for the starting center job and probably win it, put Skura back as a backup center or right guard as well. So that is going to be my fifth pick there, and I think my fourth starter here on offense.
Well, you got an extra one in on me, but here's the thing. You took Quinn Miners at 63, and I like the way you solidified the offensive line so far. I went ahead and solidified the offensive line as well, and Quinn Miners came in to be the starting center over Matt Skura. And God, it's you and I both love watching Quinn Miners play. He's a great dude. By all accounts, Brian Flores adored him at the Senior Bowl. And God, that line would have so much mean in the middle of it with Kinley playing next to Quinn Miners. I would just love watching the two of them beat the living snot out of opposing defensive lines.
Yeah, and this isn't to say that the Dolphins should specifically target offensive line. It's that this is about staying at the pick and drafting the best available player there. In my opinion, at 3, it's Penei Sewell, and at the end of the second round, it's Quinn Miners. So now you combine them with the 3 rookies from last year, and you don't have to do anything on the offensive line until 2023 or 2024. That's a great position to be in, because if you look at what happened in free agency and what's happening around the league at the offensive tackle spot and along the offensive line, but specifically the tackle spot, 16 out of 32 left tackles are making $11.5 million a year or more. So if you can get that production from rookies and get that with the athleticism that the Dolphins can bring here, that would be big. So Paul, where did you go with your next pick here?
So at pick 123, I finally added another body to that way too full wide receiver room. Shai Smith of South Carolina has been criminally underrated. He's another one that I liked last year, and I watch his tape. He doesn't have, your 1,800-yard season, but when given the opportunity and given the fact of who's been throwing to him, every chance he gets, he makes plays up and down the field. He's explosive. He can high point the ball even though he's 5'10". I believe he's a $190. Runs in the mid 4.4s, but he plays a lot faster than his speed. And there is so. Shai Smith's a guy I've been on, and I reached out to Rob Profit from who we've used as a correspondent on several occasions, because he's a big Gamecocks fan, and I basically said to him, I said, "What's the deal, Rob?" I'm like, every time I watch Shai Smith on tape, the guy pops, and I can't understand for the life of me why he's rated so low. I know the wide receiver class is deep this year, but I cannot understand why he is rated so low. And he basically just told me, he goes, "There's no reason." I'm like, does he is there some type of character issue? No. Is there? But it's his response was basically Gamecocks wide receivers, for whatever reason, have stayed extremely lowly rated throughout history, as well as at other positions. So it's literally just the fact that he doesn't get the notice because of where he plays. He is such an amazing player, and I think he's going to push early and often to potentially take over even that slot role when you don't have Gesicki kicked out there. Where did you go to, Kat? I think we lost Kat to the internet again. All right, guys. Let us know what you think. Oh, well, and by the way, thank you, John Gordon. For those that don't know, we went ahead and we enabled some Super Chat this week just to give it a try leading up to the draft, as well as we set up Shake Money and Great One DeVore as moderators to help us manage the chat throughout. John, very much thank you. We appreciate it very, very much. And, let us know what you guys think and what you guys want to see from our draft coverage coming up. Shake, our next stream is going to be our usual Saturday morning slot at 8:30 a.m. Eastern, 7:30 Central. That is going to be our full round one mock draft, regardless of team. So we're going to go through I know, Rhino. I know. We're going to go through picks 1 through 32 without trades and go where we think the teams go. And really, it's going to be a good time. So just to recap, I'm going to recap mine here real quick while we wait for Kat to get here. For me, I went Kyle Pitts at number 3. At number 18, I traded up to number 9. Gave up a round one next year for it, but Micah Parsons is that much of a difference maker. At number 36, I went with Javonte Williams, the halfback out of North Carolina. At number 50, Richie Grant, the safety from UCF, who lets you move Bobby back to the slot or potentially even make a trade involving Eric Rowe. At 81, I went with Quinn Miners, the center, who can also play guard, out of Wisconsin Whitewater, which I don't think anybody ever heard of till Quinn Miners went to the Senior Bowl. And then at 123, I went with Shai Smith, the wide receiver out of South Carolina. And Kat, you want to go ahead and recap your draft real quick? I saw you back in the room here. Potentially. Oh, he's connected. I apologize. Kat is losing internet connection this evening, so we'll give him a few minutes to get back in here. While we're waiting for him, guys, any questions for us in the chat here, let us know. Big thank you, Rhino, by the way, as well. Yeah, anything you guys got questions on from our draft picks thus far? Yeah, Rhinos, I don't know what's going on with Kat's internet connection tonight. I think, he finally handed that 1-year-old an iPad and let him start streaming in 4K at this point. We'll see. We'll get him back here shortly. Here he comes. I think he's coming back in right now. Hey, Kat.
Yo.
Hey, so I just recapped my draft. You want to go ahead and recap your picks thus far?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what's happening here on the internet connection, but thanks for bearing with me here. Right now I've got my picks so far are Penei Sewell, offensive tackle from Oregon, and then my other first rounder is running back Najee Harris from Alabama, and then there in the second round, pick number 36, I went with help me out here, Paul. Who did I take here?
36, you went with the wide receiver, Rondale Moore.
Wide receiver Elijah Moore from Mississippi.
Elijah Moore, sorry.
And then with With pick 50, I went with cornerback Elijah Molden from Washington. So now I'm up at pick 81, and I went ahead with Baron Browning, the linebacker from Ohio State. This is somebody who's very versatile inside and outside, 6'3", 241 pounds. He's definitely brings a lot of versatility, special teams ability, and somebody I think can back up both Bernardrick and McKinney on the inside, as well as Andrew Van Ginkel on the outside. And then with my fourth round pick, pick number 123, went with Ellerson Smith, the edge player out of Northern Iowa. And he's somebody that obviously went to a small school, didn't play this past year, but in 2019, he had 14 sacks, 21 and a half tackles for loss. He kind of reminds me a little bit of, in terms of his stock, of Max Crosby, who was a fourth-round pick out of Eastern Michigan who had double-digit sacks for the Raiders. I think this is somebody with his length, can do a lot of things. And when you see him at 6'6", 252, he moves around really well for his size.
I like the pick. I mean, it's and before we do that, real quick, thank you, Shake Money. I saw you donate down there in the super chat. So big thank you to you, man. Yeah, no, I like that pick. For me, now, this is the thing I hate most about the way the Dolphins draft picks are lined up, right? After 123, we have a lifetime between pick 123 and pick 231. And there are a ton of players I like that I watch fly off the board over and over again as we went down. Now, Kat, you went with a corner earlier in the draft. I went ahead and basically any pick in the 200s, you're picking definitely best player available, regardless of position. You know, hoping that they can contribute something, whether it's on special teams or if their number is called upon. And on top of the fact that Brian Flores cannot get enough of corners and secondary players, the fact that Josh Boyer can't get enough of corners and secondary players, and far too often we saw a fifth, sixth, or seventh corner having to play significant snaps over the last few years. For me, I went ahead and grabbed Shamar Jean-Charles out of Appalachian State. Kat, you and I talked extensively about him earlier this offseason. I know he's a favorite of yours, and I'm going to kind of pitch it back to you for this one because I know you've talked about him a lot before, and I don't want to steal your thunder because I know you've got better analysis of him than I do on this one.
Yeah, so this is somebody at cornerback. He's been productive. He's athletic. He's a very good pick here this late in the draft, and I think he can come along on special teams as well. And like you said, he's probably going to challenge some players on the bottom of the roster, like Jamal Wiltz, for that sixth cornerback spot, and on special teams as well. So yeah, and so right now, Paul, is this your seventh round pick here? Are we going all the way down to that spot?
This was my pick 231. That was the very next pick that I had. Did you have another one in between from your trade earlier?
No, I didn't. But in the seventh round, I went with two players, one at 231, one at 259. I went with center Michael Penei from Penn State. And this is somebody who, I think in the seventh round in general, you're just trying to keep players off the undrafted free agent list. And centers late in the draft can be kind of a dime a dozen because it's not a position that relies on athleticism. He's 6'4", 306 pounds, very productive, technically sound, solid player, but doesn't stand out in one particular area. So if he can come on the team here and be that eighth or ninth offensive lineman, I think that's worth the value. And then in terms of special teams, my final pick is Grant Stewart from Houston. Somebody who fits the profile. He had a pretty good week for his skill set in Mobile for the Senior Bowl. I think he's going to challenge, again, on the bottom of the roster, somebody like Calvin Munson or Sam Egwavon. Maybe get on the field for defense, but more likely be a special teamer if he makes it.
So for me here, I finally went with an Alabama player, which I know, we see a lot of mock drafts where folks want to go with Devontae Smith and Najee Harris in round one, or Jalen Waddle and Najee Harris, or heck, I've even seen a few where people want to try to go with Devontae Smith and Waddle. But for me, I went with LeBron Ray, the edge player that can also kick inside. He's got a really good motor. He didn't always have the highest productivity at Alabama, but he's one of those versatile defensive linemen that Coach Flores seems to love having along that defensive front. I know the defensive line is near completion, if not already complete, given the signings recently, but he just was too good to pass up sitting there on the board at 258. He was a guy that was projected as a second rounder going into last season and really fell and continues to spiral down boards. And I just think that he could be a guy that steps in and can really be effective on pass rush downs while still setting an edge against the run.
Got it. So that's going to conclude my seven round mock as well as Paul's. So, yeah, I mean, I think when you look at these two things here, Paul, that it shows how many draft picks the Dolphins have and what they can add to both sides of the ball here. I mean, whether you go offensive line, whether you go wide receiver first, whether you go tight end, I can't help but think, we were sitting here a couple of months ago and hopeful that Texans pick would be the 10th or the 12th pick in the draft. Now it's the third pick. And even if it were like, in my opinion, a worst case scenario where you take like, I don't know, let's say a Devontae Smith. I don't think he's going to go anywhere near 3 anymore because of his weight. But even that is somebody that if you had told me a year ago today that would be the pick for the Dolphins and I would be disappointed, I would have said to myself, are you crazy? So it's really just a difference between, is this an A+ at 3 or is it a B+ or an A-?
Yeah, and this is a very weird draft because you and I, for the folks that have followed us for a while now, we've never been the type to sit there every year and say, oh my gosh, this is the greatest player I've ever seen at this position, which I know a lot of folks tend to sensationalize out there, and we're just not fans of that approach. But this is a weird draft because Trevor Lawrence is very, very good and the unquestioned number 1 overall pick out there. But in addition to that, you've got really 3 guys on the board that are standouts above and beyond anybody else at their position, not only this year, but potentially over the last several years, if not more, depending on the player. And those 3 guys are Penei Sewell, Micah Parsons, and Kyle Pitts, the tight end, the linebacker, and the offensive tackle. And while I do like Devontae Smith, while I do like Jalen Waddle and the explosiveness he brings, while I like Jamar Chase and being that 50-50 ball guy that's going to really wreak havoc on DBs, the wide receiver position is so ridiculously deep. I think you're going to see those guys slide a little bit on draft day, and the third one may not go until the teens, given the fact that there's going to be a lot of folks that are in love with Jalen Darden. Guys like, and I know we're going to talk about a lot of these guys as we move forward here. Guys like Shai Smith, guys like Dwayne Eskridge. There are like I sat there talking to my cousin tonight because he's just starting to look at draft stuff, and I rattled off probably 15 wide receivers where I'm like, I'd be happy with any of them in the draft. So it's very hard to say, like, oh, we have to get one of these 3, especially when you've got talents like Sewell, Pitts, and Parsons out there that could come in and be cornerstone impact players for a decade or more.
Yeah, I see 3 players too. I see Trevor Lawrence, I see Kyle Pitts, and I see Penei Sewell as players that you may go 20 more years without seeing. Micah Parsons, I think physically could be that guy. I mean, for somebody to run a 4.39 or even close to it, if you don't believe the 40 times, and produce as he did in 2019 when he was on the field last. I mean, yeah, absolutely. But also on the other hand too, is he's an off-ball linebacker, so he plays a difficult position for a rookie, and he's got some off the field things presumably, but those are just things he's going to have to answer. And it's hard from us sitting here saying whether or not those are legitimate or not. They could be very legitimate, they could be not. So that's really up to the NFL guys to be able to evaluate those. We're not sitting down one-on-one with Micah Parsons, at least not yet. So, Paul, anything else you want to add tonight? In addition to what we've talked about here, before we get into our second mock draft here on Saturday morning for the entire NFL.
No, just a big thank you to those that utilize the super chat feature we're trying out here, and a big thank you to Shake for moderating the chat a little bit for us. And guys, make sure you make sure you subscribe. We're going to be coming at you guys more and more, and I can't wait till draft day. No matter which way they go, I am so excited for this year's draft because it's, I've heard that apparently Mel Kiper came out and was talking about the Dolphins and the fact that they really don't have many actual holes, which is something we've been talking about here for 2 weeks ago. I started to really dive into that, Cat, when we were looking at everything, when free agency kicked off. This is a team that may not have huge holes. They have areas that you can improve. Absolutely, every team does. But this is still the team that went 10-6 with one of the youngest rosters in the league, with literally the highest number of snaps for rookies of any team in the NFL, and they're only going to improve here, and they're not losing anyone significant in free agency. This is a very key year for Miami as far as their turnaround goes, and I'm excited, man. I am so excited. I want to see what this team looks like 45 days from now. And I talked so much that I froze Cat, I think. So, folks, big appreciation from me, big appreciation from Cat. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Make sure you follow us on YouTube, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify. If you get a chance, give us a review out on whatever podcast platform you do listen to us on if you do so. And thank you very much on behalf of myself, on behalf of Brian Catanzaro. If it's not on the right side and it's not on the left side, it is on the fin side.